Jen fled through the dense forest, her lungs burning with each desperate breath. The full moon cast eerie shadows between the trees as twigs snapped beneath her bare feet. She could hear them, the king's hunters, closing in. Faster, must go faster. Her omega scent was growing stronger with each passing minute. The suppressants she'd stolen from the pack healer were wearing off, and there was nothing she could do about it now. 3 years of successfully hiding what she was, gone in an instant when she'd been forced to skip her dose during the royal inspection. A howl pierced the night, too close for comfort. The Apha King's elite guard was nearly upon her. Jen stumbled over a root, crashing to the forest floor with a pained cry. Before she could rise, a massive shadow loomed over her. She scrambled backward, her back hitting a tree trunk as golden eyes glowed in the darkness. "Found you, little rabbit," came a deep, rumbling voice. "Please," Jen whispered. "I was just leaving your territory. I meant no harm." The Alpha shifted, bones cracking and fur receding to reveal a tall, muscular man with predatory eyes. King Cain himself, not leading his royal guard as he usually did, but hunting her personally. "Your Majesty," she whispered, dropping her gaze as she'd been trained to do in his presence. "I was just—" "Fleeing," he finished coldly. "After serving in my castle for 3 years under false pretenses, an omega masquerading as a beta right under my nose." Jen's heart pounded. She'd been so careful, timing her suppressants perfectly, using scent-masking herbs in her quarters, but the surprise inspection of the staff quarters had caught her with her vial empty. "I never meant any harm," she repeated carefully. "No harm?" laughed Cain, a cold sound that sent shivers down her spine. "You've been living in the heart of my court, handling my private correspondence, Omega. 3 years of deceiving your king." "You're not my king," she spat, abandoning pretense. "I belong to no pack." His hand shot out, gripping her jaw. "That's King Cain to you. Every wolf in these lands belongs to me." More wolves appeared, shifting into human forms. A woman with fiery red hair stepped forward. "Your Majesty, shall we take her back to the castle?" Cain's gaze never left Jen's face. "Yes, the king's private chambers. I'll deal with this deception personally." Jen's blood ran cold. Being recognized as an omega in the king's court was bad enough. Being brought to his personal chambers was infinitely worse. Everyone knew what happened to unmated omegas who caught the Apha King's attention. Cain watched the omega female as she was escorted into his private chambers. She walked with her head high despite the chains binding her wrists, a formality more than a necessity. No wolf could escape his fortress, especially not an unmated omega whose scent was growing stronger by the minute. He dismissed the guards with a wave of his hand. "Leave us." The woman, Jen, they'd told him her name was, stood defiantly in the center of the room. Her dark hair hung in wild waves down her back, and her clothes were torn from her desperate flight through the forest. Yet there was nothing submissive about her posture. "Do you know the punishment for using illegal suppressants in my kingdom?" Cain asked, circling her slowly. "Death, probably," she answered, her voice steadier than he'd expected. "You alphas aren't known for your mercy." He stopped in front of her, close enough that he could detect the sweet undertones of her natural scent beneath the fading suppressants. Something stirred in his chest, something primal and possessive. Death would be a waste. Omegas are rare, valuable. "We're not commodities," she hissed. Cain smiled, revealing canines that were slightly too sharp for his human form. "No, you're much more interesting than that." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She flinched but held her ground. "You've lived among us for 3 years. As what, a beta? Does it matter? I never harmed anyone." "It matters because you lied. To everyone. To me." His voice dropped dangerously. "No one lies to the king." Her eyes flashed with defiance. I didn't owe you the truth. I owed you nothing. In a blur of movement, Cain had her pinned against the wall, his body pressed against hers. You owe me everything, he growled. Every wolf in these lands does. He expected fear, submission, the natural response of an omega to an alpha's aggression. Instead, she glared up at him, her pulse racing but her gaze unwavering. I'm not one of your subjects, she said through gritted teeth. Cain inhaled deeply, his nose skimming along her neck. The suppressants were wearing off rapidly now, her true scent emerging, wild honey and summer rain. His wolf stirred, clawing at his insides with sudden, desperate need. Mine. He stepped back. Jen watched him warily, confusion flickering across her features. Here's what's going to happen, Cain said, his voice rough. You're going to tell me everything, where you came from, why you're hiding, all of it, and then I'll decide what to do with you. And if I refuse? He smiled, slow and predatory. Then you'll stay here in my chambers until your heat fully arrives as I can feel it coming on you, and we both know what happens then. Jen paled, but her voice remained steady. You wouldn't force yourself on an unwilling woman. Even you aren't that much of a monster. No, I wouldn't, but I wonder how unwilling you'd truly be once your biology takes over. He leaned closer, his breath hot against her ear. Survive a night in my bed, Omega, and I'll set you free. That's my offer. Her eyes widened. What kind of sick game is this? Not a game, a challenge. Cain stepped back, gesturing to his massive bed across the room. One night. If you can resist me, resist us until sunrise, you're free to go. I'll even provide escorts to the border of my territory. And if I can't, she whispered, his golden eyes gleamed. Then you admit what we both already know, that you belong to me. Jen's mind raced. This had to be a trick. No Apha King would let an Omega simply walk away, especially not one as notoriously possessive as Cain. Yet something in his eyes told her he wasn't lying. Why would you offer this? She asked suspiciously. Cain moved to a table and poured himself a glass of amber liquid. Perhaps I'm curious. 3 years you've lived among us, hiding in plain sight. That takes cunning, strength. He took a sip, his eyes never leaving hers. Most Omegas would have broken long ago. I'm not most Omegas. Clearly. He set down his glass. So, do we have a deal? Jen weighed her options. She could refuse, but then what? He'd keep her locked up until her heat fully descended, and then... She shuddered. At least this way she had a chance at freedom. Fine, she said finally. 1 night, and then I go free. Cain's smile was victorious. Excellent. He moved to her, removing the chains from her wrists with a key from his pocket. Your heat will hit fully within hours. I suggest you prepare yourself. Jen rubbed her wrists, eyeing him cautiously. I need to bathe. He gestured toward a door on the far side of the room. My private bathroom. Everything you need is there. His eyes darkened. Don't take too long. In the bathroom, Jen leaned against the closed door, heart pounding. What had she agreed to? She could already feel the warmth building in her core, the telltale sign of her approaching heat. By midnight, she'd be in full heat, her body craving the touch of an alpha, of her alpha. He's not my alpha, she reminded herself fiercely. I just need to survive until morning. She stripped and stepped into the massive shower, letting hot water cascade over her skin. As she washed away the dirt and sweat of her escape attempt, she tried to formulate a plan. Physical distance would be key. The larger the space between them, the easier it would be to resist the biological pull. When she emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, she found fresh clothes laid out on a chair, a simple nightgown that looked suspiciously like it would reveal more than it covered. I'm not wearing that, she announced, seeing Cain lounging on a couch across the room. He shrugged, his eyes traveling over her towel-clad form with undisguised interest. Wear nothing then. It makes no difference to me. Jen glared at him. Turn around. To her surprise, he complied, giving her his back. She quickly dropped the towel and pulled on the nightgown, grimacing as the silky fabric slid against her increasingly sensitive skin. "You can look now," she said, and immediately regretted it when his heated gaze locked onto her. "Beautiful," he murmured, rising from the couch with predatory grace, even more so without those chemicals masking your true nature. Jen backed away until her legs hit the edge of his bed. "Stay back." Kane stopped, raising an eyebrow. "This is my bedroom, little Omega. There's nowhere in here I won't go." But he didn't approach further, instead moving to a bookshelf and selecting a volume. "It's going to be a long night. Would you like me to read to you?" The unexpected offer threw her. "What? A book? To pass the time?" He held up the leather-bound volume. "Unless you'd prefer other entertainments." The suggestive undertone made her flush. "Reading is fine." Kane settled onto the bed, his back against the headboard, and patted the space beside him. Jen hesitated, then carefully positioned herself on the opposite corner, as far from him as possible. He smirked, but didn't comment, opening the book instead. His deep voice filled the room as he began to read an ancient wolf legend, the story of the first Alpha and Omega pair. Jen tried to focus on the words, but all she could think about was the increasing heat coursing through her veins and the maddening scent of the Alpha just feet away. Sandalwood and smoke and something darker, more primal. Her Omega responded with embarrassing eagerness, producing slick that she prayed he couldn't smell. But of course he could. Halfway through a paragraph, Kane paused, his nostrils flaring. His eyes, when they lifted to hers, had shifted from their normal golden brown to a deep, burning amber. "Your heat is progressing quickly," he observed, his voice rougher than before. Jen wrapped her arms around herself, as if that could somehow contain her scent. "Keep reading." "As you wish," but his voice had taken on a hypnotic quality, rumbling from deep in his chest in a way that made her thighs clench together. "Just until morning," she reminded herself desperately. "I just need to last until morning." Kane had never wanted anything, anyone, as badly as he wanted the defiant Omega sitting at the edge of his bed. Her scent was intoxicating, growing stronger with each passing minute, calling to something primitive and possessive within him. And yet he continued reading, honoring their agreement while his wolf howled in frustration. He'd given his word. One night. If she could resist until dawn, she would go free. What he hadn't told her was that he was certain she wouldn't want to leave by morning, not once she understood what they were to each other, not once she accepted that they were fated mates. He'd known it the moment he caught her scent in the forest, not the dulled version hidden by suppressants, but her true Omega essence. The instant recognition, the overwhelming pull, the sense of rightness that had nearly brought his wolf to its knees. Mine, mate, mine. But he wanted her willing, wanted her to choose him, not just surrender to biology. "You're not reading," Jen pointed out, her voice strained. Kane realized he'd stopped mid-sentence, lost in his thoughts. "My apologies." He closed the book. "Perhaps we should talk instead." "About what?" "About why an unmated Omega was living in disguise in the heart of my territory." He set the book aside. "Where is your pack, your family?" Pain flashed across her face before she could mask it. "Dead. All of them." "How?" "Hunters. The human kind." She looked away. "I was 15. They came in the night with silver bullets and wolfsbane. I only survived because my mother hid me in a root cellar beneath our house." Kane felt a surge of protective rage on her behalf. "And after?" "I wandered, survived, learned to hide what I was, because being an unmated Omega is a death sentence in this world." Her eyes met his, challenging. "Or worse than death." "Not all alphas are monsters," he said quietly. She gave a bitter laugh. "No? Then why do you rule by fear? Why do Omegas in your kingdom hide their status or flee?" The accusation stung more than he expected. "Is that what you think of my rule?" "It's what I know. I've lived here for 3 years, remember? I've seen how your subjects tremble when your name is mentioned." Kane rose from the bed in a fluid motion, pacing the room. "Respect and fear are not the same thing. They are when backed by violence." He whirled to face her. "I have never harmed an innocent." But you've harmed the guilty? And who decides what constitutes guilt? You, the all-powerful Apha King? Jen stood too, swaying slightly as a wave of heat washed over her. She gripped the bedpost for support. Cain was at her side in an instant, his arm going around her waist to steady her. The contact sent electricity shooting through both of them, and Jen gasped, her pupils dilating. "Don't," she whispered, but made no move to push him away. "Your heat is getting worse," he murmured, his face inches from hers. "Let me help you." "I don't need your help," but her body betrayed her, leaning into his touch. Cain's free hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing across her lower lip. "Your pride will be the death of you, little Omega." "Better than submission," she retorted, even as her body trembled against his. "Is that what you think I want? Your submission?" His eyes searched hers. "I want your fire, your defiance, your strength." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I want all of you, Jen." The sound of her name on his lips broke something inside her. With a small cry, she pressed her mouth to his. The kiss was like a lightning strike, electric and all-consuming. Jen knew immediately that she'd made a terrible mistake, because now that she'd tasted him, she never wanted to stop. Cain growled against her mouth, his arms tightening around her as he deepened the kiss. He tasted of whiskey and power, and something uniquely him that made her Omega howl with recognition. Alpha, mine. The thought shocked her enough that she wrenched herself away, stumbling backward until she hit the wall. Cain stood where she'd left him, chest heaving, eyes burning gold. "Don't fight it," he said roughly. "You feel it too." Feel what? But she knew. God help her, she knew. The bond, the pull. He took a step toward her. "We're fated mates, Jen." The words hit her like a physical blow. "No, that's impossible." "Is it?" Another step. "Why do you think I offered you this deal? Why do you think I'm letting you choose?" "Because you're playing with me," she accused, desperate to deny the truth resonating in her very bones. "It's a game to you." "This is no game." He was directly in front of her now, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I've waited centuries for you." "Centuries?" The word slipped out before she could stop it. Cain's mouth curved in a sad smile. "Did you think I was a young king? I am over 200 years old, little wolf. I have ruled these lands through plague and war and countless human generations." His fingers traced her cheek with surprising gentleness. "And in all that time, I never found my mate, until you." Jen wanted to deny it, to reject the claim and the clawing need building inside her, but her Omega knew the truth. This was her Alpha, the other half of her soul. "It doesn't matter," she said, her voice breaking. "I won't be owned, not even by a fated mate." "Is that what you think a mating bond is? Ownership?" His expression softened. "It's partnership, Jen, equality in its purest form." She laughed bitterly. "There is no equality between an Apha King and an Omega nobody." "You are not nobody." His voice hardened. "You survived when your pack didn't. You lived among wolves who would have recognized your scent in an instant if you'd slipped even once. You stood before me, the most powerful alpha in these lands, and showed no fear." His hands framed her face. "You are extraordinary." The sincerity in his voice made her heart stutter. No one had ever looked at her the way Cain was looking at her now, like she was precious and powerful all at once. But then she remembered her parents, her pack, how they'd been slaughtered while the neighboring packs, Cain's pack, did nothing. "Where were you?" whispered pain, lacing her words. "When the hunters came for my family, for my pack, where was the great Apha King then?" Cain's expression darkened. "Which pack was yours?"
"The Barren Creek Pack, northern border of your territory." Recognition flashed in his eyes, followed by genuine regret. "The massacre 12 years ago. We didn't know until it was too late. By the time my warriors arrived, there was nothing left but ashes." "You should have known," she accused, tears burning her eyes. "You should have protected them." Yes, he agreed simply. I should have, and I have carried that failure every day since. His thumbs wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I cannot change the past, Jen, but I swear to you, I will never fail to protect what is mine again. The possessive declaration should have angered her. Instead, it sent a shiver of want through her overheated body. Her heat was reaching its peak, her resistance crumbling with each passing second. I can't think straight, she admitted, her voice small. The heat. Kane stepped back, creating space between them despite the obvious effort it cost him. Then we wait. I gave you until morning. I will honor that. Jen stared at him in disbelief. You would deny your own biology? Your wolf? For you? Yes. His jaw clenched with the strain of his restraint. I want your choice to be yours, not your Omega's. Something warm unfurled in her chest at his words. This powerful, dangerous man was willing to suffer through the night rather than take advantage of her heat-induced vulnerability. Maybe he wasn't the monster she'd believed him to be. The night stretched endlessly as they circled each other in the confines of his chambers. Kane provided cool cloths and water to ease the fever of her heat, but never touched her beyond what was necessary. Jen watched him through haze-filled eyes, marveling at his restraint, even as her body screamed for his touch. "Tell me about your kingdom," she said during a moment of clarity, desperate for distraction. Kane, sitting in a chair across the room, looked surprised at the request. "What do you want to know? Why do you rule the way you do, with such," she searched for the right word, "intensity?" He considered her question seriously. The wolf world is not like the human one. Strength is respected. Weakness is exploited. I learned that lesson young. What happened? His eyes grew distant. My father was a kind king, too kind. He believed in second chances, in mercy above justice. A muscle ticked in his jaw. A rival alpha saw that as weakness. He challenged my father, killed him, and slaughtered half our pack before I could stop him. Her heart clenched. How old were you? Barely 20, a child by wolf standards. His gaze refocused on her. I killed him, of course, tore out his throat with my teeth, and then I rebuilt our pack, our kingdom, with one vow. Never again would we be perceived as weak. Feared is not the same as respected, she said softly. No, he agreed, but it keeps our people alive. At what cost? Kane smiled sadly. That, little Omega, is the question that has haunted me for centuries. Another wave of heat crashed over her, more intense than before. Jen doubled over, a whimper escaping her lips before she could stop it. Kane was beside her in an instant, his hands hovering but not touching. What can I do? Nothing, she gasped. It has to run its course. This is worse than a normal heat, he observed, his brow furrowed with concern. The suppressants you were taking, they've made the withdrawal more severe. Yes, I know. It's happened before. Before? His voice sharpened. How many times have you gone through heat alone? She laughed breathlessly. Every time. Did you think unmated Omegas just find random alphas to help them through the heat? The thought clearly disturbed him. There are safe houses, Omega sanctuaries. Run by alphas, she countered. No thank you. Kane ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Not all are like that. I fund several myself, administered by Omega councils. This surprised her. You do? Contrary to what you believe, I do care about the welfare of all wolves under my protection, especially Omegas. His expression softened. You are the heart of our species, Jen, rare and precious beyond measure. Another spasm hit her, stronger than the last. This time she couldn't hold back a cry of pain. This isn't right, Kane muttered, concern etched across his features. This level of pain isn't normal, even with suppressant withdrawal. It's fine, she insisted through gritted teeth. I've endured worse. You shouldn't have to. His decision made, he stood. I'm calling the pack healer. No! Jen grabbed his wrist, the contact sending shivers through both of them. No one can know what I am. They already know, he reminded her gently. Your secret is out, little wolf. I don't want anyone seeing me like this, she admitted, hating the vulnerability in her voice. Kane's expression softened. Then let me help you, not as an alpha to an omega, but as one wolf to another. Jen hesitated, then nodded weakly. What will you do? Nothing inappropriate, he promised. Just ease your pain a bit. He sat beside her on the bed, carefully maintaining a small distance. Give me your hands. Cautiously, she placed her hands in his. His thumbs pressed against pressure points in her wrists, massaging in gentle circles. Almost immediately, some of the cramping pain eased. How did you do that? She asked, amazed. 2 centuries gives one time to learn many things, he replied with a small smile, including traditional wolf medicine. Turn around. Warily, she turned her back to him. His strong hands moved to her shoulders, finding knots of tension and working them loose with expert precision. Jen couldn't hold back a moan of relief as the pressure of his fingers sent waves of comfort through her overheated body. Better? He murmured, his breath warm against her neck. Yes, she whispered, letting her head fall forward as his thumbs worked down her spine. Your wolf is fighting the suppressants, he explained, his voice clinical despite their intimate position. I know. Usually I just endure it. His hands paused momentarily. You shouldn't have had to endure any of this alone. The genuine regret in his voice made her turn to him. Why do you care so much? Even if we are what you say we are, you don't know me. Kane's eyes met hers, golden and ancient. But I do. My wolf recognized yours the moment I caught your true scent, and now that I've found you, the thought of you suffering alone, he shook his head, it's unacceptable. I've taken care of myself for 12 years, she reminded him. I don't need saving. I know. His smile was unexpectedly warm. That's what makes you extraordinary. Another wave of heat washed over her, but this one was different, less painful, more insistent. Desire pooled low in her belly, her omega responding to his proximity with desperate need. Kane, she whispered, her voice thick. He recognized the change immediately, his pupils dilating as he caught her heightened scent. Jen, he warned, if you want me to keep my distance, you need to tell me now. She should say yes, should insist on the space between them, should hold out until morning as they'd agreed. Instead, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was different this time, deliberate rather than impulsive. Kane remained still for a heartbeat, giving her the chance to pull away. When she didn't, he groaned and gathered her closer, his mouth claiming hers with barely restrained hunger. Jen melted against him, her body recognizing what her mind had fought so hard to deny. This was right. This was where she belonged. His hands tangled in her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss. She gasped as his tongue swept into her mouth, claiming and possessive. Her omega preened at the attention, producing slick that soaked through the thin nightgown. Kane broke the kiss, his breathing ragged. Are you sure? He asked, his voice strained with the effort of his control. We had a deal. I'm sure, she whispered. She was done fighting the inevitable, done denying what her body and soul had recognized from the first moment in the forest. He searched her face for any sign of doubt. Finding none, he gathered her into his arms and laid her gently on the center of his massive bed. If at any point you want to stop, tell me, he said, his eyes serious despite the desire burning in their depths. Heat or no heat, deal or no deal, your choice matters to me. The words washed over her like a benediction. For so long, choice had been a luxury she couldn't afford. To have this powerful alpha, her alpha, respect her agency even now, when biology demanded completion, meant more than she could express. I choose this, she said, reaching for him. I choose you.
Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. In a swift movement, he was above her, his powerful body caging hers against the mattress. His mouth reclaimed hers in a kiss that was all-consuming, stealing her breath and thoughts alike. His hands explored her body through the thin silk, mapping curves and valleys with reverent attention. When they reached the hem of her nightgown, he paused, looking to her for permission. Jen nodded, lifting her hips to help as he slowly slid the garment up and over her head, leaving her bare beneath him. His gaze traveled over her exposed skin with such hunger that she should have felt vulnerable. Instead, she felt powerful. "Beautiful," he murmured, lowering his head to press kisses along her collarbone. "Perfect." His mouth continued its torturous path downward, across her stomach, along the curve of her hip. When he settled between her thighs, his intent clear, Jen froze. "You don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted, his breath hot against her most intimate place. "Let me taste you, Jen. Let me show you what it means to be cherished by your alpha." "Your alpha." The words sent a shiver of both trepidation and desire through her. Before she could respond, his mouth was on her, his tongue laving through her folds with expert precision. Jen cried out, her back arching off the bed as pleasure shot through her like lightning. Kane growled his approval, the vibration adding another layer of sensation as he devoured her with single-minded focus. She was close, so close when he suddenly pulled away. Jen whimpered at the loss, only to gasp as he slid 2 fingers deep inside her, curling them to hit a spot that made stars explode behind her eyelids. "That's it," he encouraged, his voice rough with desire. "Let go for me, little Omega. Let me see you fall apart." His thumbs circled her as his fingers continued their devastating rhythm, and Jen shattered, her release washing over her in waves of ecstasy. Kane worked her through it, easing only when she collapsed boneless against the mattress. As she caught her breath, he rose above her, his eyes glowing with primal satisfaction. He made quick work of his remaining clothes, revealing a body homed by centuries of warfare and leadership, muscled and scarred and magnificent. Jen's gaze traveled lower, to where his arousal stood proud and heavy between his thighs. Her Omega purred in anticipation, producing another rush of slick at the sight of him. "Still sure?" he asked, poised above her. In answer, she reached for him, pulling him down for a kiss that conveyed everything words couldn't. The taste of herself on his lips was strangely intimate, a reminder of the pleasure he'd already given her. Kane settled between her thighs. He entered her slowly, giving her time to adjust to his considerable size. The stretch and burn gave way to exquisite fullness as he seated himself fully within her. "Mine," he growled, his control visibly slipping as her body clenched around him. "Say it, Jen. Tell me you're mine." The demand should have rekindled her defiance. Instead, it felt like permission to embrace what she'd been fighting since the moment they met. "Yours," she whispered against his lips, "and you're mine." Something wild and possessive flashed in his eyes. "Yes," he agreed, beginning to move within her with deep, measured thrusts. The pace he set was deliberate, each thrust hitting places inside her that had her gasping and clinging to his shoulders. Her nails dug into his skin, leaving crescent marks that he seemed to revel in. "More," she demanded, wrapping her legs around his waist to take him deeper. Kane growled his approval, increasing the force and speed of his movements until the headboard slammed rhythmically against the wall. The room filled with the sounds of their joining, skin against skin, breathless moans, the occasional growl or whimper as pleasure built between them. Jen felt the familiar tightening in her core, her second release approaching rapidly. "Kane," she gasped, "I'm close." "Not yet," he commanded, slowing his pace to something torturous. "Together." "Now," he finally growled, his rhythm faltering as his own release approached. "Come for me, Jen. Let me feel you."
The permission was all she needed. Jen shattered around him, her inner walls clamping down on his length as wave after wave of pleasure crashed over her. Cain followed a moment later with a roar that shook the room, his hips jerking as he spilled himself deep inside her. As they lay tangled together in the aftermath, bodies cooling and hearts gradually slowing, Jen felt something settle into place within her, a sense of rightness, of completion that she'd never experienced before. "I can feel it," she murmured against his chest. "The bond." Cain's arms tightened around her. "As can I." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "It will strengthen with time, and with a proper mating bite." The mention of a mating bite, the permanent mark that would bind them together for life, should have terrified her. Instead, she found herself tilting her head, exposing her neck in silent offering. Cain's breath caught. "Are you sure? There's no going back from this." Jen met his gaze steadily. "I don't want to go back. I want to go forward with you." The golden glow returned to his eyes as he lowered his head to the juncture of her neck and shoulder. "This will hurt," he warned. "I'm stronger than I look," she replied, bracing herself. His teeth sank into her flesh, breaking skin. Pain bloomed sharp and bright before transforming into something else entirely, a rush of connection, of belonging, of completion that took her breath away. The bond between them snapped into place, her essence intertwining with his in a way that defied explanation. When he finally pulled away, licking the wound to seal it, Jen felt changed, not diminished as she had feared, but expanded. She could feel him, his emotions, his strength, his ancient power, all flowing through the bond they now shared. "Your turn," Cain murmured, tilting his head to expose his own neck. Jen hesitated only briefly before leaning in. Her teeth weren't as sharp as his in human form, but instinct guided her, and she bit down hard at the spot where his neck met his shoulder. The taste of his blood was metallic on her tongue, but she held on until she felt the bond solidify between them, complete and unbreakable. When she pulled away, Cain was looking at her with something akin to wonder. "My queen," he whispered, reverent. The title should have frightened her. Instead, she felt a rush of rightness, not because she would rule at his side, though she would, but because she would stand as his equal, his balance, his conscience. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "Now?" Cain's smile was both tender and fierce. "Now we rewrite the rules of my kingdom, together." Dawn was breaking, pale light filtering through the curtains. The night was over, the challenge complete. But Jen had no desire to claim her freedom. She had found something far more precious in its place. "I thought I'd be setting you free," Cain mused, trailing his fingers along the curve of her spine. "How so?" 2 centuries of rule, of isolation, of putting fear above connection. His eyes met hers, vulnerable in a way she suspected few had ever seen. "You were right, little wolf. Fear is not the same as respect. My people deserve better." "Our people," she corrected gently. His smile was like the sunrise. "Our people." As they lay together watching the new day begin, Jen thought of all she had lost, her family, her pack, her freedom. But she had found something too, a mate, a purpose, a future. And for the first time in 12 long years, she was no longer running. She was home.